Living indubiously.
It is your call. It is your game. It is your creation.
Oh my God, they're so indubious.
You have to have an optimal theory for playing the game.
Whatever you focus upon becomes your truth.
Welcome, everyone, to the Living Indubiously podcast. Before we get started, I want to remind everyone here that this podcast is a place where we open our hearts and we display true aspects of ourselves and our human experience without judgment, so others may benefit from them and connect to the energy that we aim to create more of in the world. Through this energy, may we lay down the burden of fear and doubt. This is the Living Indubiously podcast. And today we have Eric and Lem, co-founders, part of the co-founders of Easy Star Records.
Hello.
Two of the co-founders. There's other co-founders. They're invited. They're just not here today, right?
Correct.
We're just not here.
Yeah. It's great. It's great to chat. I mean, it's always great to chat with you guys. But you know what I love most about the podcast is I get to have dedicated time set to like sit and talk with my favorite people. Because whenever we're talking, it's like, you know, we got so much stuff to talk about business wise that the homie hangout stuff gets kind of pushed to the back end, right?
And we normally, in normal times, the time we've been working together, you would have toured, we would have had a night or two where you had a show and we hung out afterwards and had that time, but we haven't gotten that time. Yeah. So it's good to do it here.
But honestly, on our calls, we often kind of descend into homie time, don't we? I feel like a lot of our Zooms are kind of meandered into other places.
Yeah, I think that maybe there's just never enough time.
Yes, agreed.
Maybe that's just an indicator of how well we gel together.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, a particular conversation that I've always, it's like a burning question for me, and we've never talked about it because I almost don't want to open the can of worms and go down it just based on our time allowances, is the story of Easy Star and how it started. Who wants to take this one?
I guess I'll start from, we obviously probably are going to have some different perspectives along the way, but for me, it was at a show in New York in 1994. I was with our partner, Michael Goldwasser. It was Sister Carol, Sugar Minot, Freddie McGregor, and the Meditations. And during that show, I basically leaned over and was like, we should do a reggae label, and we should release music. And within a week, we had gone to Eric because I don't know, we just knew Eric knew his shit or something, and we're like, we want to do something with him, and had asked him if you want to get involved. And I mean, I don't remember your perspective of it, Eric.
Yeah, I remember being pretty fucked up at a party when we were kind of starting to hash it out. We were all back from college in New York. And I think definitely like for the four of us, we'd always end up like trying to put on the reggae mixtape always at a party and try to kind of take over the sound system, and
often fighting with each other for
I was partial to dancehall more than Roos at the time, but we all just were kind of reggae fanatics. I had been one for years before that, and so we started talking. I remember hashing out at parties, and then I had our fourth partner Ramy. I kind of wanted to bring in because he and I had done a lot of business ventures together, like in high school. We would do keg parties. I would bartend, DJ. So we always were kind of, just doing little kind of like, side hustles or things like that. Hustles. So I definitely felt like we already kind of had done business together. Some legal, some not legal, and things like that. So I think we wanted to bring him as to really kind of be become my business partner into this partnership of four.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then really what we did is we met, I think, once a week or twice a week, and we would kind of assign out, we had to figure out what did it mean, like we had no plan, we had no knowledge. So someone would be in charge of, looking into incorporating a business. Someone would be in charge of looking into what does it mean to distribute records. And, we eventually put an ad in the Village Voice seeking singers. And, we knew the whole thing was that Michael was a musician. He had a band at the time called Special Request, which actually had Tikla playing keys in it.
Right.
And so there were some connections in there, and we felt like, okay, we could create the music and then bring in vocalists to do stuff. And that was kind of some of the impetus that was going on. But we ended up running.
One of the main things we felt at the time, even though we all were fans of dancehall, that there were really no live new rhythms being created. It was kind of, everyone was just kind of rehashing yet again, another style, another, just kind of regurgitating, which was great. We loved the history of rhythms, but we felt we had the audacity to say, why don't we create some new ones and create some live rhythms? And so we were very much the idea of like bringing together a live band to create tracks. And that was kind of the motivation.
So the band Easy Star All Stars came after the label was started?
Yes. Yes.
Interesting.
And it, it's always been more of a collective, really. It's really, Michael would always be kind of the band leader and the producer on stuff. Right. It really started, actually, there were a couple of shows where like Johnny Osborne came to town. This is before, we did Dub Side of the Moon or anything. And Michael would throw together a band to back someone coming into town. And we would call it the Easy Star All Stars, just to kind of brand Easy Star Records of what we were doing at that point. So, when we did Dub Side of the Moon, that was kind of the first time that officially the band existed. And the lineup on Dub Side of the Moon, the four main people, really isn't what became the kind of the touring aspect of Easy Star All Stars and the real, the people that have been with us since 2003. But some of those people were around in the earliest days, like Ivan Katz, who plays drums, played on some of our earliest demos, back in 95 and was part of the scene, a friend of ours and stuff. So, it
was definitely a mix of, high school friends who were in bands, and then also some, just reggae veterans in the city.
High school friends. How old were you guys at the time this was all happening?
It was post-college,
like 25, 26.
Yeah, I was 25, 26, exactly.
So Dub Side of the Moon was the first release?
No, Dub Side of the Moon was the 12th release.
Oh, so okay. It's the one we all know because of the success of it. It's like one of the most iconic dub albums,
You have to go back to Easy Star Volume 1, which was our first CD release, which was a compilation of the singles we were putting out. Our first release was a 7-inch vinyl single.
Right. 4 7-inches in like 97.
So the idea was to put together these singles into a CD, and honestly, that was probably going to be it. We figured, we could get to that. If we could get to that point where we actually put out a CD of all these singles. I mean, obviously we had some ideas of continue, but I think we all were just looking at that finish line. So that first release was Easy Star Volume 1, which was a various artist release. But also, the Easy Star All Stars were branded on there, right? We had them as
that's where you're right. We did brand them there because the dubs that we threw on, we called Easy Star All Stars.
So the Easy Star All Stars existed from really the beginning, and the B-sides would be every B-side dub would be the Easy Star All Stars and our singles. So that was
which was just, it was us ripping off, Virgin All Stars or various, any All Stars sort of name for that.
And then it stuck.
And then, we did the first, in the early years, from Easy Star Volume 1, we met the Meditations, and we did a song with the Meditations. Through the Meditations, they liked our vibe and what we were trying to do, and they introduced us to Sister Carol and Sugar Minot. We started making inroads, and early on, a lot of those early records, like we did a deal with Sugar to reissue some stuff that he had in the vaults. And that was 3 or 4 records that we did. We put out a Meditations record. We did something Sister Carol did. So we were kind of building this up, doing some of our own stuff. And it was when I was actually going store to store, trying to sell Easy Star Volume 1 in New York. And I was listening to Dark Side of the Moon on my Walkman as I walked. And it just kind of occurred like, hey, this might actually be we always had been looking for projects that could take the reggae that we really loved without watering it down and bring it to the mainstream.
Yeah.
And so that kind of occurred to me. And by the time that afternoon, I saw Eric and Rami and was like, what do you think of this idea? And we quickly came up with the name Dub Side of the Moon. Now, it took us 3 years and leveraging credit cards and everything to get to the point of releasing that record. And the whole time we were sweating worried that someone was going to do it before we did, et cetera. So,
Yeah.
Well, also, what happened was we started off doing our own productions. We ended up releasing, new music from artists and also reissues. And that part of the business was still going. And we were kind of busy with that stuff. So we're continuing to release other product while we're still trying to work on our own productions. And also everyone has day jobs too. We're not full time at this point. So I was working at the New York Times. Raymond was working at the New York Times. And
I was working at Columbia University, and then I
didn't
moved
know
to,
that. You're working at New York Times?
Easy Star for a week and moved to Charlottesville, Virginia, where I still am, and happily I went back after a week. And
so it's kind of this was your side hustle at the time.
Wait, what's that?
This was the Easy Star was kind of your side hustle, your passion project.
Yes,
it was a labor of love for sure, definitely. And we thought of it as a hobby. We had delusions of it growing, but we didn't really expect that.
And that happened through. It was Dub Side of the Moon was the one that hit for you guys.
Well, before that, though, I would say we really felt pretty accomplished before Dub Side because we quickly, one thing that happened is when we were just coming online as a company was really when the internet was coming online. One of the things we did is we had our own website, easystar.com, which was in the early days when there's you could count, there was maybe 10 reggae websites or reggae addresses. So we were always working our brand online. So we kind of had an international audience quickly because we definitely did get a lot of love for what we were doing. But we also had a party started in the city, Easy Star Reggae Tuesday. So we were trying to kind of just build a brand in general. And I think we were doing all that before Dubside hits, but Dubside is a pivot point for sure.
And Dubside really, that changed as you said, that changed it for us because it really moved the goalposts so that we realized we could accomplish bigger things, that there were ways to do what we were doing on a larger scale. It definitely freed us up to start working with other bands and opened us up to different avenues we did. And so Dubside definitely set us up to have this career now, 25 years or however long it's been as a label. But we were hustling and doing good stuff before Dubside for sure. So
right within genre, we were considered, I think a pretty respected niche, boutique label. But Dubside has opened us up to a bigger audience. And I think for us also the lesson for Dubside is that we toured the band, and so we hadn't really, we had kind of hopped on board with some of our artist tours before, and we were aware of it and kind of involved, and we did local shows. But Dubside and bringing the East Star All Stars over to Europe and around the globe really kind of gave us a lot of experience in terms of the touring side of the business.
We also, as Eric mentioned, we definitely were globally minded from the beginning more than some. I think that we think some of our contemporaries in the California scene had such a scene with Sublime going on and stuff that they didn't necessarily need to look beyond California.
Yeah.
Maybe us being in New York, we're always much more aware of Europe than other places are. We're just, it's sort of, we're looking that way more from where we are. And so, with Easy Star Volume 1, on my lunch breaks, I would come home. I would live 5-minute walk. I would race home. I'd walk the dog. And then I would go through reggae magazines to look at ads and just find a phone number of someone in Germany who's who's selling records. I'd call them blindly and say, hey, we have a record, and make contacts, some of whom we're still working with today in Holland and other places.
That's awesome.
So that, when finally we did Dubside, I remember we had made the choice to go there was MIDEM, which is this worldwide music conference that happens in France every year. Kind of, has it finally ended, Eric? It's
talking about moving around. Obviously things changed a lot.
Yeah. So, but with that, I remember we went right before we had Dubside finally ready to launch, and just I remember having those meetings with someone from New Zealand and someone from South Africa and Brazil, and, and people excited about it. And, and that really, but it was really, as Eric said, that the Easy Star All Stars touring, especially in the UK, really hooked us up with a lot of contacts, a lot of goodwill. And we've used that route to introduce all the other stuff we do since then.
And for a long time we would just build as Dubside because we were still building the Easy Star brand, and we knew that Dubside was what it had to lead with. So we'd kind of tell promoters, it's got to be Dubside. You can throw Easy Star, All Stars in there, whatever, but it's
Yeah.
really about Dubside. That's all you need to sell it in. So we really, for a lot of people, kind of just knew us about that and didn't necessarily know the history before. And
which
podcasts
may
like this
be,
can educate people.
and that may be why we still to this day, people will always call it Easy Dub Stars, Easy Dub All Stars or whatever. Like they cannot get the name right. And it's, it's one of those awkward, you don't want to correct, you feel bad correcting it. And you
just let it go.
Exactly.
I think one of the really nice things that we saw come out of Dubside, we didn't expect to be really marketing that to Pink Floyd fans or for rock fans. It was really for reggae fans. That's what we thought would be our market. So that's what we thought going in. But to see how it was embraced by Pink Floyd fans, first of all, but also by just the general music community was really significant for us. Because I think, we were pretty sad and frustrated by the mid-'90s of kind of looking back on how reggae had a much more respect in the golden age in the 70s within the rock circles, and how there was definitely this love affair with reggae for years. Every big rock band had their reggae track, and there was that period, and it kind of felt like we strayed so far from that. And not that we were fine to be with the core reggae audience, but just feel like that the lack of respect or care or awareness that was outside of the core reggae scene was really frustrating to us. And we also felt was really wrong. We thought it was bullshit. So, when we really when we saw that, how all of a sudden all these people who were like, I don't like reggae, or I never knew who Frankie Paul was, but, we opened up so many doors, we feel like, with that album, and doors that should have been open before. So, it wasn't like we were kind of like doing a trick where it's like, just kind of, maybe they'll get it if we present it this way. And I think that's what that album really did. It really kind of made people think about reggae. He didn't think about it that way, in a new way.
Well, you guys have done it, man. You cracked some kind of a code.
Yeah.
And I've been fans of Easy Star for years and years, just, following what you guys are doing and looking at your releases, and then getting to meet you guys and realize that you're just nice, cool dudes. It's a rare thing to come by in the music industry. I mean, we all know the stories of the music industry, how it's, it's a difficult place to find family. And so to see you guys, A, being successful, and B, releasing like good music that's not pandering, just to sell, and and finding art and finding and picking up artists like Indubious, like who were relatively like a budding artist. Super stoked to be involved.
Well, I think we both, for Eric and I, we both get a lot of pleasure out of the process and the journey of working with artists and trying to get them to do their best stuff. And that to me is sometimes the satisfaction that I most draw from this. And that makes it easier. And that sort of brings a vibe at times that hopefully you as an artist feel, where it's, it is a true partnership the way we see it. We, we want to get involved with bands that are doing interesting things that we feel good about curating and putting out there. But it's also part of that we want to come and give our experience or our thoughts in a dialogue that goes on between the two to say, hey, here's what we're hearing. What do you think? And if you make a good argument, you're the artist. Great. Go with that. Even if we don't necessarily agree with that decision, things like that. That's where where I get a lot of the most fun out of this.
Yeah.
And in the end, it's really been to the things you said there, Evan, it's been this extension of how we try to live our lives. And when we kind of realized, we didn't go in there being like, let's make Easy Star, a representation of how we feel about, humanity and how we should treat each other. We definitely didn't do that.
Right.
But we had no business training. None of us did. And only one of us had any training in the music business. So we just kind of put ourselves into it. And it was, however long in, I think each year we kind of just realized, wow, Easy Star really is a real extension of kind of how we feel we should operate. Kind of my business philosophy is super simple, is that, it's a lot easier to be nice to people than to be assholes. It's a lot easier to do your job. It's a lot easier just to do what you say you're going to do. And it was amazing how people were just kind of falling over themselves when they're being treated that way. And it's sad about that. But it's like, the analogy, the story I always give is like, if we just agree on a deal where I'm going to pay you $50, and you say, okay, we shake hands on that, and I pay you $50, that's it. It can be that simple. And you know, you might have wanted 100. I might have wanted to pay you 25, but we agreed on 50 and we did it. And just to follow through with your basic arrangements, your basic agreements it's just so easy to do. The roadmap's there. You both agree to do it, but people have such a hard time doing that. So, you know, just doing the follow through and what you've already agreed to do was just opened up so many doors for us. And it's just amazing to see how many people just don't conduct themselves that way in business.
Yeah, it's an inspiring story to see a group of friends that start something out of passion that catches fire, that, you know, you get to build, you know, abundance for yourselves and your families and your friends and artists, and do it your way, you know, and treat people the right way. It's like, that's what we're trying to do too. And, you know, over the years, we've seen so many bands come and just surpass us and come and just surpass us. We see it over and over again. Yeah. And you know, your tendency is to go, well, what are they doing that we're not? Mm-hmm. And then you go, okay, well, how can I change what we do to be like that so we can have that success? Mm-hmm. And so you have to fight that urge. And we've been fighting that urge and remaining true to ourselves now for many years. But the cool thing now is that we have this thing that's very much totally unique. We haven't sold all our souls out of the fear of not being accepted and loved and supported. And you know, it's the long game. It's like, at the end of your life, are you going to be proud of that decision? That's the way to think. And the reason I'm bringing it up, because I feel like we're just energetically aligned in that same way of what we're both doing.
Well, and the only thing I would say is, it's not just the long game, but what I think is important too is, can you draw satisfaction and feel accomplishment along the journey as well? Even if you're not at the end of your journey or you haven't accomplished everything, can you look and say, wow, that was a good year we just had. We put out some good music. We had some great times, et cetera, and draw satisfaction from that, and not be continually dissatisfied because you haven't achieved that highest goal that you might have had in mind. Right. That should still always be there, somewhere to chase. But if you don't get there until the very end, that's, you know, the journey's the beauty of it.
I absolutely agree. I was going to say the same thing. You know, we felt really accomplished when we had that first 7-inch done. We were like, okay, we did it. We felt really accomplished when we had that first CD done. We felt accomplished when we were like considered one of the best reggae labels in the scene. You know, it's a small scene. So if we'd ended each one of those points, we'd have been okay. You know, and that's how I think allowed the future sex to happen. You know, it took years for us to get to the point where we could quit our day jobs. It took years for certain milestones to happen, but we appreciated each step along the way.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah. That's for sure.
That's beautiful. I mean, it's hard not to get caught in the externality and ego of experience of wanting to constantly conquer. And I think the illusion is for anyone in any industry or anything in life, the illusion is that you're going to get to you see a place you want to be, I want to be there. You think you're going to get there, and then you're going to be like, okay, satisfied. Mm-hmm.
Never.
Yes.
It's always a moving goalpost. And it's like, you know, we want to be where that band is, and that band wants to be where that band is, and then that band, and it goes up and on forever. And even people at the very, very top are like, dude, I wish I could just go work at the fucking bike shop.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Especially in this business. I mean, it's so, and you know, I think we all of us at Easy Star have great empathy and for artists. You know, Michael, our partner, is not an artist himself, so he obviously does. But yeah, I mean, you're always going to be comparing yourself. There's always, always there. You're either looking up or you can be looking down. You really have to, I think, appreciate where you are and understand like that place in the bigger picture.
And we, you know, I definitely still have a competitive nature, and you know, there are competing labels or, you know, organizations where I'll have days where I can't get out of, you know, like I'll get caught in a mind trap of being upset about something I see. Why are they getting credit and we're not, or whatever? But coming to terms over the last couple of years, and Eric and I have had a lot of talks about this, of being able to recognize that we do something special, and the bands or the people that see what we do and can benefit from us will make the choice to work with us. And that can be enough. That music can be good. If we miss out on someone, you know, that's going to sell a lot of records, but that wasn't going to see what we brought to the table, then it's not going to be as worth it. And for us, it really has, there are many times just this year for me, a special one has been this, we've been working with John Kwan, who's, gone from having he's coming out of nowhere. And it, for us, it was like, do we have the time to kind of put into this? We like the music, but is it worth it? But it's been so satisfying because it's really, I really feel good about the project and putting it out. And so I'm happy to put that time in and seeing the satisfaction that he's drawing from the little numbers that he's getting as he's building, or when David Rodigan plays his music and to go, wow, someone's paying attention. That gives me as much satisfaction as, and it was great when we put out a Revolution record that hit the top 15 on the chart. That was awesome. And that was, or getting a Grammy nomination. Those are great. But I can get just as much, daily satisfaction out of even just the interaction of running a business with my best friend. That alone can give me, can keep me sustained and keep me spiritually happy doing stuff. So
early on, like in the first couple of years, we definitely had our fair share of bad agents that we worked with. There are a lot in the music business. They're all in all businesses.
Oh yeah.
And those are upsetting and frustrating. And you also have to decide, by doing good business, by being, straight and by being honest, is that really going to help you? Or is that going to burn you, in certain situations? And I think we kind of made the decision at some point, is like, we're going to work with people we trust and we like to work with, wherever that goes, because it's not worth, doing the grind, the heavy lift this takes every day to be working with people we can't trust and work with people we don't feel are good agents. And once we kind of made that decision, it was freeing, because we knew we were always going to be happy doing what we do, because we weren't going to surround ourselves by people we just didn't want to mess with. And I think luckily there are a lot of people out there that we feel we can work with. So I think that says something, that there are a lot of good people in the business. But also it just means that we're not worried about being stuck with a bad situation. We surround ourselves with people we can mess with.
It's an important moral decision we all have to make as humans, is like, do we maintain our integrity no matter what, or do we succumb to the evil that we see in others because it's being cast upon us, right? And for me, it's like, it's the Jedi thing, is maintaining higher ground. In the Star Wars movies, the one who has the higher ground always wins, and so that's part of my like spiritual ethos, is just to stay there, and then I never go down that hole. And even if someone gets one over on you, it's not like they're feeling good about their existence. Their karma is instant and real. They're living in a world where people steal and cheat and lie and have to be in that all the time.
They have to worry about that happening.
That's a stressful world. And we can see that. And that's the thing. Like this is actually even like a offensive move to have this position, because we're surrounded by people we can actually really trust. If there's one bad agent there, they can't really hurt us, because we have so many strong people out there who are champions of ours. Yeah. I think, the testament to this is that we are, and tell me if I'm wrong, Lim, but we've not broken any bridges pretty much in 25 years in this business. We are friends, and we're on good terms with every single artist we dealt with every single intern.
Even ones that have left or have gone on to other things. Yeah.
And so we have a network of people out there that it's not perfect. I'm sure some people have been frustrated with us sometimes. Some people might have wanted more money for something or whatever, or felt we were giving more, and whatever it is. I'm not saying, we're perfect, but we have strong relationships with everyone we've worked with. And again, it's particularly people we've stopped working with, because that relationship should continue. Just because we stop professionally working with each other doesn't mean we have to burn that bridge. And that was definitely a conscious decision. And it's amazing with each year we go through this business, how like it's just true. Like we're pretty much in touch with every intern. I say interns specifically because that's a subordinate position. It's not an artist, it's not a manager, but we value our interns deeply, and we've been with them for their journeys to their business.
And we made
that commitment to them when they started with us, and we've kept that commitment. And now all these interns are in the music business and they're moving up. So it's a mutual, beneficial relationship, mutually beneficial.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, so I have a question for you, Evan.
Yeah.
You mentioned before that you were an Easy Star fan and you were aware of Dub Side of the Moon. Mm-hmm. From the outside, what, like, did that mean something that the label or the imprint meant something and you dug deeper into what we did? Is it just that if you noticed it was on Easy Star, you go, oh, and it would make a connection? Or were you like, what, as a listener, what did that mean for you?
Well, the name Easy Star All Stars, for me, like, that name is kind of peculiar on its own, so it stuck out to me as like Easy Star All Stars, and so it always stuck in my head. And then I think it was around the time when like streaming music started to become a thing, where I'd put on a reggae playlist and I'd start hearing those songs way more. I was like, this album's so freaking good. And so from now in the last 15 years, I've heard that album so much, and it's so popular. And so that kind of, into the algorithm of the way things go is that, when I see Easy Star All Stars, I just started looking out for the name. And then it wasn't really until I became, more prolific and professional in my musical world that I started looking at different labels that are releasing music that I like, and going, shoot, which one of these labels do I want to do business with?
What do you picture yourself on? Yeah.
And then our friends New Kingston, I heard that they got signed to your label, and I was like, damn, those guys are doing big things. They're on Easy Star. That's so dope. I was kind of jealous. I was like, these guys, what? They're on Easy Star? And then, a few years goes by, and we're working with George. We're working with George, our agent.
Oh, George Michael.
Yeah, George Michaelo. And we have the new album coming out. And he's like, you guys got to talk to Easy Star, man. Those guys are good guys. And one thing I know about George, like George is like one of my favorite people in the entire music industry, because he's like super pure heart, just like positive, amazing guy. And so he really, really vouched for you guys. And he said, dude, I'll hit him up. And so when he hit you guys up and then you guys expressed interest, I was pretty nervous to talk to you guys.
Now you're like, really? Why was I nervous?
And now you're like, they're so not intimidating.
These guys are into my music. Okay. And then it's funny because I remember like our first call, it was just me and Michael Goldwasser. And Michael's, obviously he's an amazing dude, but his bedside manner is way more gruff. He's like, he's kind of bust your balls a little bit. And so he was like busting our balls. I was all nervous, but then we started kind of having our conversation and just realized, I think, how like-minded we all are. Yeah. And, the rest is history.
Yeah.
Yeah. It has been, we've obviously been touching on this, but it's been really nice just to get to speak to you, both of you, and just get to know you guys. Our philosophies on music, and I'm sure a lot on life, definitely align. In many areas, and it's been so for us, again, to be able to still be enthused about doing this many years in, we have to enjoy
you have to, man.
And especially when conversations like just having those conversations with you guys about the music, about the business, that's what we enjoy doing. We could do this for another 25 years.
Totally.
But and the other thing is it's hard to also to keep that love of music going too. And especially, we listen to so much beyond reggae. And I would say at times, because of how much I have to listen to reggae for work, when I'm not at work, quote unquote at work, which when you own your own business, it's kind of 24/7.
You're always there.
But listening to a lot of different stuff to kind of cleanse the palate and find different journeys. But just like having to find that new inspiration, that new way to kind of keep going 25 years in, for music itself, you need to be an active listener, and you need to be digging in, and you need to find new things that excite you as they go, and embrace new trends, embrace new things. And that's, basically never resting in any, whether intellectually, emotionally, any of this. For us, it's really about the growth that we as human beings are having on this journey. And Easy Star and the success of Easy Star is an offshoot of what, when we move forward as humans. That's kind of, as Eric said, it's really a reflection of where we are. When we're sitting there having a conversation in a green room about, the process of writing a song or about something like that, which we've come to realize is an outlier, that a lot of bands are like, that's not what other people are coming in and talking with us about. But it's because we're genuinely interested in this stuff, and we're generally interested in the people we're working with, and we want to have these conversations. And if and that helps guide us a lot of times on decisions we make and people we want to work with.
Yeah.
Making your passion your guiding light is so pure.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's so hard to corrupt that.
Yeah.
And so it's such a natural thing to do, and it's weird because we make it so much more complicated as humans, because we put all these other things into the fold. And I think what most people do is they operate from a place of fear and lack, and go, well, I need to make the decisions that's going to make me the most money and status and success, or else I'm going to, be downtrodden. But what that does is that takes away your faith in the universe for things. You're throwing that away. You're going from faith to fear, or what you could do instead of that is just trust that everything's going to be okay. Trust that feeling inside you that's guiding you towards something that makes you feel fucking magical, and let that write your story. And I mean, obviously, that's what we're both doing.
Yeah. And I do think, I agree it can be easy. But I think, you'll agree that it can get complicated when you try to make your passion your business.
It is,
and that to Lem's last point, I mean, there was definitely after, when it becomes work, when you're not just going to a show to listen to the band, but you actually have to talk to the manager, and you have to be thinking about, how this works out for your, plug it into your business model. That's a different thing. But I do think you can stay true to your passion and make it fun. And we've definitely done that. And that was a point about like listening to the music. Or there's been a lot of points where Lem and I have kind of been like, let's just take a step back. What are the basics of being a music fan? And let's make sure to protect that and to build that. And that's how you kind of can go for the long haul, in the business.
And I just this past weekend or 2 weekends ago, we were at the Cali Vibes Festival, which was great. How
was that, by the way?
It was really good. It felt really good for the scene. It was big. It was pretty well run, and picturesque. It was good to be back with a lot of the people that we normally would see to network, which we hadn't done because of the pandemic. But and I had great moments with, we had 7 or 8 of our bands having shows and playing. So I was having that. But literally it was Mr. Vegas, who we've never dealt with, but have been a fan. He was doing this set, and Eric and I went over there. We were like, okay, let's go check it out. And that was just such a magical musical moment for the weekend that kind of made it was able to transcend all the business that had to be going on. Yeah. And that, as Eric said, it always has, even when you're, really enjoying one of your bands playing, you're still constantly thinking about it. And it allowed me to just be a fan for a minute, for half an hour, and
that's
just be
awesome,
in awe
man.
of this dance hall veteran doing a set,
I was just depressed the whole weekend because Indubious wasn't there.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a different topic for a different podcast.
To get you there.
We tried next year. No.
Well, you guys, one of you mentioned something earlier of like this feeling of like, oh, I'm not going to get this right. we're not going to release this one album that could end up doing really good. And so it's like, you have to kind of pick your battles, but then you have the anxiety about missing the thing that could be the key. And it's like, I think that when you let the mind kind of rule your life that way, that you just open up a box of worms. And the perspective that I've developed, which is the only perspective that seems logical, is that everything happens in its time.
Right.
And I'm not going to just make the wrong decision or miss this one thing that would have changed my life, because I'm on the trajectory that I'm on. And my vibe attracts my tribe, the way that I feel and the way that I have, my energy is my magnet. Yeah. And there's nothing that's going to stop that.
We made a lot of decisions that might have seemed to be like cautious decisions or conservative decisions, not taking that leap of faith at times. But a lot of them were just kind of gut feelings, and not letting the mind kind of get in the head too much in the way of it. And a lot of them really served us well. For example, when Dubside was hitting, we were definitely getting approached by majors and looking to possibly become an imprint or be acquired. In the end of the day, and we were still working day jobs at that point, but still said, let's hold on to our main assets. And obviously, we also had some really important mentors who also said to that, that kind of gave us advice. So, definitely mentorship and also seeking advice of people who've been through this before is really important. Mm-hmm. But, we always kind of kept ourselves independent and kept kind of the core thing that was working for Easy Star intact. And after Napster and after really the music business imploded and all those other labels that got picked up, got absorbed, and and all the employees were laid off, we all of a sudden were kind of the
you guys
sexy
are still standing,
label.
baby.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of my partner, she worked in the music business for years, and she was in the major label side of the business. So while we were doing our little independent thing on the side, she our whole household was had the other side of the coin and the major labels, and I definitely felt very, very small and independent compared to
Beyonce,
compared to Beyonce and everyone down the line. But it was interesting after that period post Napster and when the music business really constricted, all of a sudden being indie was so wise and so forward thinking, and everyone was like, a lot of people who were like friends of ours who were laid off from the majors were envious that we had our thing, and all of a sudden everything's kind of turned on its head a bit. And and the reason why we got there and why was really just kind of gut instinct, to kind of just going with our heart and just kind of just letting what we were doing guide us and not overthink it.
I also, what you were saying, we've definitely, we've often run the business with the idea that things will happen at the right time for the right reasons. And, there are many cases we've had, John Brown's Body always comes to mind, that we were contemporaries. We sort of crossed paths in the early years. They were okay. We weren't like, it didn't hit us in a way where it was like, oh, we really, and then at a certain 2004, I went, they were coming to Charlottesville to play a show. And I was like, well, I need to go out and just represent as a reggae fan, et cetera, and say hi. And they blew me away in a way that I hadn't seen them ever before. They just felt like a new developed band that aesthetically was exciting to me suddenly for the first time. And this is after knowing them for, 7-8 years or something.
Wow.
And so at that point, that's what, that felt right. Pacifier was another band that, had a career going. We were aware of each other, and then the right time came for us to work together at that point. And if someone decides to leave or something, the couple of times that's happened, it's like, you just need to let things go, and that the universe is going to sort itself if we do the right things and we're doing what we're good at, and we're putting out good, vibrations into the world. That tends to come back is feeling. I do believe in things like karma.
See, I told you guys we were going to get metaphysical.
Hey, you can't, metaphysics are,
I told you.
It's fun. It's a fun thing. So, but that's paid. That's for the most part paid off. There are times that I'm sure, and this is part of why Eric and I have been good partners, because there are times where I can get caught in the moment operationally and just needing to deal with what do we have to do right now.
Yeah.
And Eric might be saying, hey, we need to be thinking a year or two ahead as to what's going on, rightfully so. And for me, it'd always be, well, we'll get there. The river will go and we'll find our way down there. And I think what's been nice is we've been able to influence each other and meet in the middle at times to be able to make those good gut decisions at the time.
You guys kind of balance each other out a little bit.
Yeah. Well, we definitely have always, as partners, of complement each other in good ways. So
Eric, you mentioned earlier that your business decisions sometimes feel like it leans more on like an intuition or a feeling, or like something that's obviously makes sense. And I'm curious what category Indubious would fall into for you guys. Was that an intuition thing, or is that like a no-brainer, or what do you?
Interesting. Well, I don't know if I can put into those two boxes, but I would say,
because it's always much more than that, right?
Yeah. Well, it's tough, because I always want to. I can't say. I always want to say, more important than the music is actually, can we relate? Do we feel like we can go to battle with these people? Yeah. But it's not, because the music obviously there. Then we just our label is a curated label, so we're making decisions on music. In the case of Indubious, I'll say for myself, Indubious is interesting because. All three of us, Rami often doesn't usually get involved in music decisions, even though he and I had a very important music journey together as kids. But the three of us, we all kind of came to a consensus pretty quickly. And I think I mentioned this before, calls for you guys. We really appreciated. First of all, we thought the production was amazing. That was great. It was something totally different. for our label. And that's what I love about it. There's nothing like Indubious on our roster. John Brown's Body kind of was like that at some point. We felt like, truly original acts, which I just think just deepens our catalog. But then there was also like, you guys got dancehall in a way, like we as New York, dancehall raised real fans, we really appreciated that. And that's something which we all kind of commented about. And there was an aesthetic there, so from the kind of creative sense, that was there. But whatever, once we talked to you guys and talk to the team, that's when we feel like, okay, we can actually work with these people. So I think, and that goes back to the same point is, maybe there's some times where people we're not sure we can work with that well, but it makes sense from a business standpoint. I'm not saying we never go that route, but if we're like, you know what, we don't need to make a profit on this. Whatever, if we can communicate with them this way, then one, we can have impact, we can help, and they can give us something. And I think that's what we felt. And I think it's only been true. I mean, it's kind of funny because that's how we usually feel about like how far the conversations have gone. And obviously you guys can go deep down. Like this conversation we're having right now, Lem and I will have these till 4:00 in in a hotel room on the tour road all the time. So this is, we speak this language. So it's kind of funny how far it went once we got to know you guys. But
thank you, man. That's really cool to hear.
Well, and I'll add into that too. We still do our homework, and so that we'll still look at numbers and try to analyze what kind of a following someone will have. What have you sold before? What are your strengths? Those sorts of things. But that becomes just it starts with the music, and then it always goes to where Eric's talking about of who are these people and are they, going to do it? And definitely what he mentioned, we've really tried to build a label giving everyone their own lane and not trying to double up on, 4 bands that kind of pump out the same sound. And that's, that compete with each other. It's really, and there was nothing quite like you guys on the label. And that made it kind of exciting. And for me, it was really just hearing the Throne with Capleton and that bass line you guys got, and Capleton coming in, and I was like, wow, no one in the US scene is putting anything quite like this out right now. And that was exciting to me.
Respect. Yeah. Super appreciate those reflections. I've never asked you guys that before. It's really cool.
Yeah.
I told you, it's cool. We just get to sit here and like kind of meander in this fun philosophical way.
I don't know if I'm trying to remember back because obviously we've done so many of these, but we're kind of slow. We're not like, okay, fine, here's the deal, whatever. It takes a process. And we also have like 20 something bands in the roster. So there's literally like, it's cool. There's this Indubious project. We might be able to do it, but like we have a responsibility. And once we're starting working with someone, we have an absolute responsibility to make sure we're taking care of the people already on the roster.
Sometimes to a fault to ourselves, that the amount of time that we'll put in to take care of someone. So.
But it's definitely a process. It's, we listen a lot and we talk a lot and we have meetings, and we go in slowly. And I do think part of the slow process also, I think it serves us because it's kind of a vetting tool because, back to the point of like, sometimes it takes a couple of years for us to actually work with an artist. It's the long game. And if we start a conversation, they really want to go through this? Are they going to be there in a week, in a month, in 2 months? If they still are, and they're still down to have that conversation, they haven't moved on to the next shiny object, then we'll start to focus on them, because we get a lot of, each day we're getting solicitations, pretty much. And some big and small, and some never come back and some do. So I think by taking your time with these things, it kind of weeds out a lot of the fakers.
Yeah.
For us too, what became apparent, and the thing is, it really became apparent more once we had agreed to do the record and we're working with you, is, we're so lean on, it's really us and some interns doing everything. And we get a ton done that way. Yeah. But it's really important that the people that we're working with are like us, in that if you ask for something, they're going to say, I'm going to have it to you by Thursday, and they're going to get it to you, because there's no way I can't be chasing, a nightmare of logistics, of chasing someone who's not going to follow through with stuff. You guys really have your shit together and care about it, in that, if we say, hey, we got to get this figured out by Monday, you're coming back with what's needed and stuff. And that, which is true of almost every band that we work with at this point. And thankfully we've done a good job of vetting bands before we get to that stage.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen, the music business is littered with the number of people who,
Yeah, man.
make life hell for everyone just by being disorganized or not following through or whatever. And it's
Totally.
painful.
Yeah. So I want to tie this all together because I see this beautiful thread being woven through this conversation. Okay. So I feel like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like what Easy Star has done is you guys have stuck to what you're passionate about, stayed with it, done it out of passion, and not really wavered on that, and it's paid off, and you got it, and it's fruitful, and that what you have is this unique thing, and the reason it's successful is because it's unique, because you guys are tastemakers, right? And so, and then that's what we're doing too, in a way, because we've stayed true to what we're doing for so long, which in the beginning just made us weird and not palatable. Mm-hmm. Now, the thing that made us weird and not palatable is the thing that you guys are going, wow, this is totally different. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, to anyone out there who's listening, don't try to change your vibe. Trust in it. Love yourself and stick with it, because the fruits in the end are going to be way better than the temporary fruits right now of you sacrificing your, your very special, important, unique snowflake in your artistic perspective or whatever it may be.
100%. And I think about this with Indubious, and I actually love branding. I love the fact that we're talking about Easy Star, which was just a name that we came up with, and we came up with a logo. And I always love that idea. I think business is so much fun. I think entrepreneurship is so much fun. And it's just great when we see like Easy Star Records became Easy Star All Stars, and that, anytime I see someone with an Easy Star shirt, it's great. And I definitely see what you guys are doing with Indubious. And I love when the podcast, you're taking that brand and you're expanding it out there. And obviously what you guys are doing is so tailor-made for a podcast. So I see the same kind of like dedication to the brand, and definitely stick with that and keep on. You can start again. You can start something new. I'm not saying people can't do that, but I think if you're really dedicated, if you love it, and it's such an extension of who you are, just keep going with that. And I mean, again, as long as you realize you've already reached success, as long as you know that you've already achieved that in so many levels, then we all have to. I'm not someone who says like, let's not talk about money. I think money is important. I love the fact every time I write a royalty check, I love the fact that I'm paying myself. One of the, just going back to kind of our history, one of the probably the biggest mistakes I may have made is not leaving my day job earlier, not leaving the New York Times. The idea of having to pay myself was terrifying. Now, the idea of having to rely on someone else to pay me is terrifying. And so I think there's that, and that, so there's a money aspect of it, but I mean, I think just staying dedicated is what you're doing. You guys have so much, obviously, from your own life story. I also love how that has become part of what you experience and what you are, and anyone who's going to like really kind of cross Indubious is not going to miss out on your own personal life journeys. That's going to be a part of their experience, and I think that's wonderful too. And I think same thing for us. If you're going to talk about Easy Star Records, you're going to talk about Lem, Michael, Eric, and Rami, and who we are as people. And I think that's the way it should be.
I think it's also, there's a layer though that makes it tougher on you as an artist, because the relationship to the fans, like being true to yourself and putting your music out, but at the same time, for us, we're able to, by curating, we get the relationships with every one of our bands. We get that on a daily basis and things. Whereas your main relationship as an artist is going to be to what fans see of you or think of you and how they feel. And that makes it that much harder to potentially stay true to putting out the music you want to put out. If it's being rejected or something, that creates so much more trouble for your ego to deal with and things like that in a way.
Oh man. You're preaching to the choir,
so
brother.
I don't envy you in your
Never
part of the
envy
journey.
artist.
It's
Ever.
not easy, guys. And I appreciate that compassionate, understanding perspective. It's something that I deal with daily, or, maybe not daily, but regularly. And when I go out to see another show of some friends that play in what I would consider a kind of a lighthearted pop branch of reggae, that is just so genre is so successful, and what we do is incredibly niche, but it's just needed.
Yeah.
It's just needed in the depth that we have and how people respond to that. The response that we get of how we've changed people's lives and how what we're doing is making a real impact. You know, it would be arrogant and ungrateful of me to think, well, I want more. So I'm gonna write my pop song and try to make hits, you know. I mean, not that there's not aspects of that still happen within me, but I don't know. I feel like I don't even have a choice. Like, I feel like it was encoded within me from birth to do what I do. And I've told you guys the stories of, we'll go out and play shows with people, and then we get these kind of, you know, kind of hurtful messages of like, oh, you guys are fake Jamaican, you know, disrespectful to people of color for stealing their culture, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, I feel like that aspect that a lot of people are resistant to in the mainstream. That's the thing. For example, you guys are like, these guys get dance hall. These guys have this edge that people don't have. So it's like, what one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Well, you know, that touches on something which I was thinking when we were talking just a moment ago about our roster and about how I do look at our roster and be like, wow, there's really nothing out there, no other label out there like us. And just seeing the range of different reggae artists that are on there.
Yeah.
But I do feel like we've kind of had to be that bridge, whether it's Dubside being that bridge to like rock fans to reggae, whatever, or within the genre being that bridge. I really feel like we've kind of had to like show people beyond just the surface, you know, stereotypes they have about people and let's just talk about like the reggae genre, about what Indubiously is, and you know, and what it, when you look quickly at something on stage, what does that represent? And I feel like we've walked the walk, you know, because there's definitely the hipster, you know, kind of nose up scene within our scene, and in New York, there's a lot of them here, and we go in those circles, and we've had to be like, you know, to a lot of people, like, hey, there's this California scene, which is whatever you feel about it, it's working, and I don't think it's just like just turn here and dismiss it. You know, there's a whole group that'll dismiss anything that doesn't come from Jamaica. There's a whole group that just ignores anything that's coming from Jamaica, and I feel like we kind of like walk through all those different rooms and kind of have to be like, you know, hey, come over to this other room and see this act. I mean, you don't have to love it, but just try to have some objectivity and look at it for what it is, as opposed to looking at it with blinders on.
Yeah. And
same thing for European partners. They come to New York, and we'd have to be like, "There's this stuff going on in California again." You say what you want about it, but look at the audience and see what's happening, and just at least try to kind of take a moment to analyze it. Not because they need you to do it, because you should do it for yourself. And there's been a lot of those discussions, and I think we have kind of bridged some gaps. And I think it's been nice with the roster, even within the roster. For example, like, you know, GDC. Kind of checking you out and just having, when we're seeing like two labels kind of see each other, two bands on a label see each other in any way, that's pretty cool. And that happens all the time. You know, we'll have one artist be like, oh, I had no idea, I'm checking out whatever. So, I mean, I think that's within our little scene. It's been nice to see that we can kind of, you know, build some bridges.
Maybe.
We had, when the Skints first came for their first tour, and we were stuck in traffic driving out to Long Island with them, and we're playing them the Expanders' first record that we had just put out. And they were like, what is this? Yeah. And within a year, they were touring with the, you know, they had made contact and were touring with them. And that's such a great moment for us, when we kind of seed everyone and introduce them and get them excited about each other in that way. And, you know, I would also say we've been in it long enough now. It's been interesting and exciting to see the way that even ripples we created, how they rebound back and affect us years later and things. What we did with Dubside definitely helped, not as the only thing, but with a lot of, you know, with things like John Brown's Body and other stuff, but helped create the US reggae scene. That there's a lot of bands that were kind of introduced to reggae in high school through that record and started digging in. Yeah. And so, you know, now we come across bands that you know, that grew up on that and are finding their own way and are interested in their own way. But, you know, I remember we had at the time, you know, as the US reggae scene was going, I remember Eric saying, hey, you need to listen to some of these and find ones that you like, because there's good stuff out here, but this is growing right now. And even then, I was still a bit of a Jamaican snob at that point. Even though we were a US reggae label, there was a level of like, whatever is happening. But him giving me that nudge and us, and finding bands that we could believe in and that we really felt strongly about within the scene, that created a whole pivot for us for a number of years where we didn't have a number of actual Jamaican artists we were working with. And then it was great when that came back around again, that the way that river flows at a certain point, that next generation of Jamaican artists, the reggae revival with like Protege and Jesse Royal. And, all of a sudden they were knocking on our door and we're like, wow, you guys are, exciting to work with and doing great stuff. And it was just the right time that happened. So, the longer that we're doing this, the more satisfying it is the way the twists and turns are revealing what the next things are going to be.
Evan, I have a question for you. We're talking about the label and we're talking about Indubious, and you're asking about our experience. What, obviously we connect in this way, but what was your experience now going through the album cycle with us? Besides being cheerleaders and giving you some advice, do you feel did it change your situation? Did this release on Easy Star? How did that affect the band?
Well, it's funny. I was having this conversation with my buddy Kyle Smith this morning. We went, I don't know if you know Kyle Smith. He's a budding artist out of California. He's doing really good. Yeah. But it's like, he asked me the exact same question. And I mean, the obvious answer is yes. I mean, it obviously improved our situation and has elevated our name. And we have this, kind of, an increasing of abundance and success. And I think that, I can't necessarily say that you're the reason of it or this is the reason of it. I think it's this just energy and this momentum that comes, and you guys are a huge part of that in our career. But the funny thing is, from the human perspective, I guess it's really, it's good we're having this conversation because it helps remind you to be grateful of where you're at, because you never feel like you're there.
Yes.
Right. And it's always like, that happened. And then next thing is this. And then, then I'm going to do this. And then that's going to do, so to sit back and go, that was really great. Like, us working together. And, I feel like the quality of the project that, we co-created, having you guys there to reflect and refine with us was invaluable. Having Michael to be able to give me notes on my production, and not just that, but him say, hey, I don't think we need to hire a producer because your production is enough. Yeah. That for me was like, blew my mind.
Was that the first time anyone had kind of given you that confidence and said that to you?
Had anyone given me that before?
I'm saying, was that one of the first times an outside person had kind of said, hey, you're good enough to do this, what you're doing?
Someone sitting in a position that I respect and deem as like a music professional. Because obviously, my friends and family be like, no, man, that's great. I was like, okay, yeah, thanks, Mom.
I remember those conversations, and it's definitely for Michael to say that. That's a big deal because he's a little bit of a perfectionist. Sometimes we'll be like, maybe too much of it. Sometimes we're like, you just got to let things go a bit. So for him to kind of, he's very much like, this is how it should be done. You need a mastering engineer to master album. You cannot have it's great. It's great to have that voice in our camp. But so for it to come from him, it's like he does not throw that out there lightly. So I think that has impact.
And so that impacted me deeply. Having his input. I mean, we butted heads on a few like basic, simple things, but overall, it was something it was an energy that I totally welcomed in, was having him critique my work and give me notes. And because I remember it was a conversation was like, are you open to getting critique? Because a lot of artists are going to be like, hell no, don't tell me what to do. And I'm like, absolutely, I'm open. I mean, my goal is to be the best that I can. And the way that you become the best that you can is by learning and allowing people to give you honest critiques without getting defensive. And
that is the hardest thing in the world for people. And it is something that we work so hard to do in ourselves, and it's how we've grown.
And many artists say they are really, really open to it. and they're still not actually open
Yeah,
to it.
that's
So
it. There's a lot of
Totally.
they'll
talk.
always be like, "Are you really, really, really open to it?" Because we got a lot of that.
Yeah, and I had that dynamic with Michael. He's like, "Are you open to it?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Okay, well, so I have a problem with this." And I'm like, "Wait, but that sounds perfect. What are you talking about?"
I'm not open to that.
It was like literally
Yeah,
the
you-
first suggestion that he had. I was like, "No, I disagree."
I do really appreciate we're having this conversation because we never actually get to kind of, we have a lot of debriefs, but one of the things I'm always fearful of is we've gone through many times. We're like, it's so great to be signed to Easy Star, and like I was a big fan, and I've realized like it's great to have the fans signed to the label, but it's also like I'm always like, okay, so it might not be all the bells and whistles you think it's gonna be, and like might be like you might wake up a year down the road and be like, okay, has my life totally changed? Am I like now like looking at my Grammys on the wall? And no, it's not like that. And I do think we're always like wondering sometimes, can artists kind of get the subtleties of the work that's put in there? And sometimes, and the big situation is like there's the work you put into a project, and if you have a dedicated and responsible team around you, the results are going to be the results they're going to be. They may not be it may be a really big leap forward, they may be a small leap forward, but the work was still valuable and the team is still there. Even if like Michael put in his efforts, we all put our best efforts, and then maybe the needle moved a little bit, maybe it didn't, but it's still all really valuable stuff for the long term. And that's again we found for the long term. Sometimes there might be even a step back. Sometimes artists, most artists, when they have that big, when we can say this from East Star All Stars, from Dubside, most artists when they have a successful album, it's going to be diminishing returns afterwards. It does not just go like this. Most things go like that, or go like that, or just And I think so. Sometimes the success is that you sold close to the previous album. Sometimes success is you sold more. So, but it's really hard to kind of really feel sometimes what was a successful partnership moving forward.
And I want to specifically talk about Cass Haley for a minute there, because that was a great relationship we had, that we're still good friends with Cass. He's not recording for the label anymore. He moved on. But when we first worked with him, he had the America's Got Talent thing with Walking on the Moon.
Yeah.
And had millions of streams. That was this big viral hit. And so everything we did with him, numbers wise, paled in comparison to what had happened. But when he met with us, what he really talked about was that he saw into the beast with with the Simon Cowell, what they were expecting from him, what they were trying to make him. And he was like, that's not what I want. We could tell what he wanted was to have a career, be able to support his family, expressing himself in his music and doing that. And everything we did was to try to support that. And I feel like even though you might look at the metrics and say, yeah, it didn't do what, he had more success initially. But like for him, I think he would come out and say that, the journey that it put him on and where he's at as an artist now, so much of that was that foundational work that we did together to kind of refocus where do you want your energy? What's important to you? And coming out of that, him eventually making those decisions like, my families are my most important. I'm going to change how I tour and bring my kids and my wife out on the road. I'm going to start writing with my wife and let her, she's not a musician, but I'm going to write songs with her because it's a family thing. And that's what's important. Right. That part of the journey is so important to us. And I think Cass would say the same thing, even though to outside eyes, in the music business, we didn't succeed in breaking him larger than he had been, but he's got a career that I think he would have burned out at this point if he hadn't done this work and worked with us on this in this way.
Yeah. He's a fantastic guy, and he's really family oriented, and he seems to be doing great. He's doing tours left and right and making a name for himself, continuing the momentum. I wanted to touch back on what you were saying, Eric. I think that it's like totally adorable and like really endearing how humble you guys are, and how you're like, well, is it a good experience for you? And just like from my perspective, like I held you guys and the Easy Star name in like such high regard. And after doing the whole process with you guys and working, I hold you guys in even higher regard now.
As you should.
Just because how kind.
There's the humility's gone.
Say it again.
I said,
I said the
should.
humility's gone with that comment that Eric
As
made,
you
so.
should. Yeah, but it's like going through the process and like comparing that to anything I've done in my life in terms of working with people in a professional capacity in music. It's met and exceeded my expectations, and it's allowed me to elevate to a level of professionalism in what I do that, I mean, you guys have you have lifted my expectations and the way that I hold myself. And I think that it's evident in the numbers. I mean, I think that it did double to 3 times as many sales as anything we've ever done. So I think there's no question there.
I was gonna say, I think in the case of your album, because I'm always looking for the metrics, because obviously we want to, just one thing to be clear, with our humbleness or our all talks about warm and fuzzy kindness.
Yeah.
As Len mentioned before, we are very competitive, and I think people, and I'm not saying you are making a mistake, but we want to win, and we are very competitive, and we have a lot of internal conversations about, and we can be just as catty and jealous, because I feel like I want to be honest with that. That's all there.
We're human.
But
we're human,
for
sure.
But we work through that, and we always know that we should be, our brand is kind of, part of our brand is being this kind of, approachable, cool guys. That's important.
Yeah.
That is part of our brand, but we also really believe in that. We're committed to that, and that's how we want to be treated. So, but that doesn't take away any competitive or want to succeed. So that point is, in the case of our album, I look at the numbers. Yeah, we actually do. I think there's like 3 or 4 singles in your overall top 10 already on Spotify.
At a certain point, it was like all of them except for one, but it's changed a little bit.
So that's a really tangible achievement. We have, and obviously that starts with the product, that starts with you, and then we pick up the baton and help kind of get it to to the next steps.
Yeah.
So I do think I think the album stood out, and I think partnering with us definitely probably helped. And the other thing about working with us is sometimes we're just also helping explain the business and helping make contacts. There's a lot of nuts and bolts things, like best practices that we owe it to you when you sign to us, that we're here to kind of guide you. So it may not be realized. We may talk about sync, and you may not get a sync opportunity, but we're having that conversation with you, and we are putting you in position to have that sync opportunity with our sync agent. So there's a lot of things that may not be realized in this specific campaign, but at least we're hopefully trying to kind of give you the knowledge that we have. And, because we do this so many times, that's the thing for an artist. The benefit we can give an artist is that you guys are just yourself, or whatever the band you're working in. But we have every other artist that's on our roster and every artist we've worked with that we can say, look, we can give you all that, download all that information to kind of help you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we do a good job of synthesizing the various ways each of the bands, approaches stuff. We also just never assume we have all the answers, even with as many years as we've been doing it. I mean, partly because we've learned the hard way of being in the business as it transformed from physical to digital to streaming to, all these things. So we knew that every couple of years we had to rethink things. But during your campaign, we would still come and say, look, this is probably the best way to release this, and these singles going in this schedule. But it's always a conversation, because we want to hear, what do you think? What, does it make sense to you what we're describing? Because we're only working on what we're seeing currently with other releases and what we're being told by the other mentors and partners and experts that we have, and that gut feeling we have of experience there.
And I appreciate that.
We never try to come saying, this is the way you're going to release it. This is the only way to do it, because we've been burned when we try to do that.
Well, I like that fact. I mean, you guys always approach us that way with, this is what we think, this is what we would do, but what's your, and in the beginning, obviously you work yourself into a level of comfortability with people, but I'm at the point now where I'm like, whatever you guys think, you guys know.
We've earned it.
Just tell me, you've earned the trust to where I have to make far less decisions now because I have you guys in my team. And that's the part to me that is not to downplay the actual tangible numbers of success. That to me is the real value to me, is that I have you guys on my team, and we're a family, and you guys love us, and you love our music, and you talk about us, and that reverberates through your community of, the people that you have the influence on. And that's been reflected to us through, all the various opportunities you guys have presented. I mean, it was unfortunate that a lot of opportunities you guys have presented, we weren't able to take because they were, because just through the whole COVID messy landscape.
It's been messy.
Yeah, but that stuff is, even if it doesn't line up, the fact that it's an offer that's on the table that we have to turn down, it's still like, yes, that's awesome. And so kudos,
And that's what, you deserve, and the artist deserves nothing less than that, and I think like we're not here to be martyrs. I think this is a mutually beneficial relationship. We're getting just as much out of we put in. I think that should be in any relationship. But this is not just like we're kind of giving your car a tune up or we're doing some kind of transactional thing. These are your lives. These are your careers, especially, and that's just really understanding, respecting how serious this is for the artist. How could you come any differently? And I think that's just, I'm, talking about being humble. Like I could never do it for a lot of reasons, but it takes a special type of person, a special type of ego, which also creates a lot of problems, with artists and us having to deal with them. There's always, there's the conversation about, the artist, sometimes a good manager can be an essential buffer, but it's extremely difficult to put to be a performer and to be a creative and to make creative your career. And we do feel like we have people's lives, and we are playing a part in people trying to realize their life dreams, and that's really important. And I think that's also why it's amazing. As
you guys are really truly doing it.
Yeah, and then we're Lemon and I are not musicians ourselves, but we're music lovers, so we really feel good that we're playing our part. You're
trying to overcome your inadequacy of not being able to play music.
Okay, that's the truth. You're
overcompensating.
But I gotta say, I would trust our musical taste over many of people in terms of like, can we hear a hook or an earworm or something like that? I will say also what's interesting is the relationship, because we've had so many with different bands. You guys fall into one where we deal with each other directly, and we're dealing with you as the artist. And there are a number of bands where we have a really good, strong relationship with their manager. We don't necessarily have the same relationship with the band. It's friendly or whatever. We don't deal with them on the day to day. Yeah. And both have their pitfalls and their rewards and everything going there. But you guys have fallen into that template that we have at times of when we deal directly with a band. And it's been that can be a really special, rewarding one because, we're always aware of what the things Eric's talking about. We're always aware of how easily things cannot succeed or the weird factors that can help something succeed, all the things out of your hand, the nature that you just need to do your work. You need to set everything up and put it out there and hope for the best. But it's hard, anytime I see a band that's thinking about going and I have to look and you start making those mental calculations of like, okay, where are the ways that they, is this a band that has one record in them and then is creatively done? Is this a band that's going to have a drug problem that's going to derail them? Is this a band that's going to, what do we?
Are one of the band members going to move to Africa and to be a shaman or something?
Exactly.
Who knows?
It's funny actually.
Shaman is a new one. We hadn't been planning on that one before. So.
It has been funny because it really is pretty predictable. You see the life cycle of a band, and we, again, I just love. For all the issues about especially, this is a young person's industry and we're getting older and we're definitely getting older in the business. I love the wisdom that we have at this perspective. Each year just gets better. So everyone should embrace getting old. But just seeing the life cycle, the super young phase where everyone's down and everyone's down to be with each other. And then when the relationships creep in, when the kids creep in, when the realization that maybe this is my plateau creeps in, when the burnout creeps in. And, for us, we're I think what's really important is being there through those, wherever it goes. And we think with bands, being there, whether it's even professionally or not, even just being there as a friend post professional relationship, being there for those moments where you have to really transition through and hoping that artists can figure out how to still find joy and find a path through these life changes because they happen every band we see it. There comes a point where the pay gets well enough that you no longer can do everyone sleeping on the floor. And that's a dynamic change. So now all of a sudden opportunities are closed because the band now is comfortable at a certain level. All these things happen.
Oh man, I know it very well.
Yeah.
Right. You got to get back in the van instead of the tour bus. And everyone's no, we're not.
No, we're not.
Right. Yeah. You could get to that next level if you just hustle it for these 3 more years or get back in the van and leave the bus. Well, no, we'd rather the bus And from an X's and O's standpoint, like, well, no, that's no. To make that next level, you gotta hustle. Like, but maybe the band doesn't want to, or maybe just being the cliche of meeting the band where they are. What's actually doable, and what do they actually want, and what can they actually do? And it's not all just like more success, better album, bigger touring. It's not.
Being able to look at ourselves and know there are a number of projects we didn't take on just because we at the time were like, I can't add that to life right now. I don't think we would be able to bring what we want to bring to it. And there are a couple that are sad to have given up, but we had to be true to ourselves and what we needed to do to succeed in the long picture.
Yeah.
And so I can never fault a band if if they make a decision that's the right decision for them at that time, even if it affects their long-term health or their business or whatever. Because, as long as you're thinking about it and making smart decisions and being true to it, then you got to honor that process.
There's so many factors. It almost takes this like divine alignment destiny for it to be the thing where the band members actually get through that amount of time, or spend any real time together, and for us, it's been. Obviously we've gone through all the things you're talking about. And when push comes to shove, we go, do we really want to do this?
Yeah.
It's like, it's just fun. And I'm not as happy when I'm not doing it. Yeah. So the cool thing about that, that has its pitfalls too, because then you can not take it as seriously. But the cool thing about that is that's the guiding light. The guiding light is the passion and the joy that you derive from it, and the ability to like spread that with people, and having that as the foundation, and then the success and the growth as the side effect. That's a winning combo in my opinion.
Yeah. Definitely.
One thing that's been interesting, I think I've really realized over the last year, is just actually how different you and Skip are. And I think, in terms of like successful partnerships, and whether it's a band or a label, the four of us are very different in many ways, but we've stayed together and stayed loyal to each other. That loyalty, we're very different people. We really are. But one thing is we've all stayed totally respectful and honored each other, because, most friends getting together in business or family fail. You're in your case, your family.
How many bands are like the Kinks where the brothers are, fighting?
So what I've been struck by is that realizing how different you are, and it seems, tell me if I'm wrong, that you are also letting each other be like, and using like Skip going to Africa, for example. We kind of talked about that and talked about, obviously you stay back and we talked about your different roles in the business, but can you guys still, let each other grow, give each other space, but still also be totally locked together as a team moving forward, since you are professionally tied? It seems to be that you guys have got to figure that out.
It's been that way. The way it is now compared to how, the shit we've dealt with in the past, you would think that there's no way these guys are going to make it, because it's been so bad and so gnarly and so tumultuous and so many roadblocks. And you guys know the health roadblocks too. It's like, it's just a miracle that we are where we are. And not only are we, I'm still alive, I got a few bumps and scratches, I'm here and I'm better than I feel more aligned and more alive and more invigorated by it and more passionate and more creative than I ever have. And it only continues to get better. And I can't necessarily speak for my brother, but I went and spent a few days with him recently, man. And what the path that he is on spiritually and emotionally, it's like, if anyone in the entire world was ever going to do anything to work on themselves, he's fucking doing it and then some. It's like, and if you knew my brother, he's not the most like hardcore, I'm going to go hike Mount Everest dude. He's just not.
Okay.
He's like I need a bed to sleep every night kind of guy, and I need to get all my sleep. But he's like going to Africa and doing these deep, intense things, and like he's telling me about the stuff that he's working through, and it's fucking impressive, dude. It's impressive, and I'm jealous of the peace and happiness that he's cultivating. Jealous is a weird word. I'm very proud, and I'm
you
eager
can relish
to
it for him.
Say it again.
You can relish it that he's having that. and still
eager,
feel a little
I'm proud
envious
of him.
that you don't have it.
Yeah, and I want to be on that same trajectory, and I am, but yeah. I'm sorry, I feel like I got on a tangent.
No, that's actually, I wanted to hear that, but that kind of proves my point or answers my question. And we could go down a whole rabbit hole. I was curious. One last question on that tip.
Yeah.
Did he feel transformed coming back from Africa?
Does he?
Does he seem transformed?
He does.
Back? Yeah.
And I went and spent, like I said, I've spent like 30 minutes with him, and I was sitting there, and I had a moment. I was in awe of the peace and presence that he had, and he was talking to someone about the medicine and how it heals and this and that, and I was like, damn, he's really doing it. You know, it was a serious thing. So
you had not seen that before in him, that peace?
I see, you know, we see glimpses of the divine in everyone, but the time in which you sustain that is broken up by stretches of humanness and dysfunction and anxiety. My brother has had a lot of anxiety and addiction and you know, just not feeling happy where he's at, and he's struggled with that his entire life, and that's what's led him to doing this work. And it's interesting because there's the ego part of me which wants to be like, fuck you, dude, like come over here and do all this shit with me, do the stuff that I'm doing. But the mature, not even mature, the higher perspective, like higher self, is like anything that you're doing that's enriching your soul in the way that it's happening has to be the best thing possible. Yeah. And who am I to think anything other than that? This is going to be nothing other than valuable to me. You becoming your best self helps me become my best self. Maybe becoming my best self helps everyone that I'm in touch with. You know what I mean? Right. It's just goodness multiply, exponential goodness.
That's been at the core of my perspective of the friendship that Eric and the partnership that Eric and I've had. That in the past I can cling too much to a friend or try to, you know, to emulate them or get subsumed into them or twist them to my needs. And in this case, being able to really to trust and to let Eric do what Eric's going to do, and to know that that is going to be rewarding in itself, and that if he's happy, then that makes everything easier between us, both business wise and friend wise. Yeah. And that's not easy to kind of let go of some of those things of what you expect in a person or what you're hoping for from them. And, you know, if it wasn't constantly rewarded back to, so, you know, that reinforces it to say, I just get so much out of seeing the way he operates or what he does, you know, the advice he gives me or the objective, you know, the things that go there, then I would, you know, but I constantly reminded and rewarded of it. And I think it goes both ways. And that's been, you know, I'm constantly aware that people, let alone having a business partnership, but having a friendship that's been as rewarding as it's been for me in this case. And I've had a lot of good friendships. I still do. But this one, I'm able to sit back and say, this is unique. And this is fulfilling me. It's, you know, it's spiritually helping to guide me and make me a better person. And that's amazing too.
That's amazing.
Lucked into that. And lucked in, but put work in as well. I will say.
Well, I mean, I hold friendships with really high regard. I mean, I think, you know, family, I think all relationships are important and you gotta value them. But, you know, family, you don't get to choose. Children, you don't get to choose, and spouses you do, and friendships. And I think I think it's just wonderful. And I do think the friendships we have within Easy Star or the friendships we have with bands is extension of this. Like I felt my friendships through life have been just as important as my family relationships, and really kind of the high point of my happiness. And that's what's kind of crazy about this. Like I actually didn't start a company and do business with my friends, which is kind of makes sense now in retrespect.
Yeah. They tell you not to do that.
And then just make, and then all you do is just make more friends along the way. And then you're really just working with your friends. And that's, and it's pretty easy to do. But I really hold that relationship very highly.
Which again, we walk around Cali Vibes or something, and there's friends left and right between artists and other people we work with. And it's just nice and rewarding to see what you put out in the world and connect with people in that way.
I definitely feel like there's an endless amount of topics we could talk about. Are you guys doing good on time?
I need to tie up in the next 5 minutes.
Okay. So,
but have us back. Or let's get you back on tour to the East Coast, and we'll plan to have one off the podcast.
That would be
where
cool.
We can really
Yeah.
Go super late. So.
Yeah, I mean, and it's good to leave the people wanting more, and then, obviously we can do this anytime. We can do this in a few months again or whatever. I had a whole list of questions.
Yes.
And it's like every single, and I didn't really look at it, but every single question on the list we've gone over. We've talked about all the things. It's kind of interesting how it worked out. But to tie it up, I just want to ask you guys, this is a question I have here that I think is interesting. Do you think that music can change the world?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. It does.
Definitely.
Look,
on the personal level for me, I still, I've gone through a lot of shit in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And if I'm sitting there in a dark moment, a song can still literally, like hearing a new song that catches my ear can literally heal me in a way. And I know that that's happening on the micro level, and then there's macro level of songs that you can see that actually made a difference in the world and connected people in ways, or changed society in certain ways, broad messages. So I definitely think it can. Do I think there's a lot of music that doesn't do that? Yes. Some of it's still great to listen to. Sure. But I think when you try to change the world with music, that's where you're going to run into problems, because that's like trying to grasp, Quicksilver or whatever, whatever that is.
Oh, yeah,
you're going to constantly be
completely screws the energy up.
So,
I mean, agree with all that, and definitely feel like music just seems to have a main line to the heart. And I don't know what other experience really kind of just has this direct connection with our deepest emotions. I'm sure there might be another example, but I think music definitely serves that. And I think there's also the collective experience, the live experience. I think is significant. It's absolutely. I think it can. Now, I guess in terms of, like, if you're asking how it changed the world, I mean, I think it can move people, and it can move an individual, and it can move mass groups of people, I think, in different ways.
Yeah, I think that medicine comes in many shapes and forms, and music has a unique encoding of words, tones, sounds, feelings, harmonics. Say it again.
Meaning, like in lyrics.
Meaning and depth. That is, it's like, if angels could speak, they probably speak in music. And, the feeling that I get is transformative. And I know that the internal is a reflection of the external, and, as above, so below. We're changing the world, guys.
Yeah, I think so.
My daughter's a singer, and 2 years ago, her really important mentor of hers died unexpectedly, and I'm not sure I can. And she just went into the bathroom and just started singing, and just in a way we'd never heard her sing before, and it was just cathartic, and it was just gut-wrenching in some ways to listen to, but I don't know how else she could have expressed her pain without singing in that moment. And I'd never heard those sounds come out of her mouth, and that was just from an extreme loss that she had, and that's just one example.
Wow, man.
Yeah,
that gave me goosebumps, bro. I think it's a beautiful note to leave it on.
Yeah.
Yes. This was great. Thanks for having us on.
I really appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and I'm very stoked that you decided to come on and spend some time with me, and I'm sure the listeners are grateful as well.
And I really appreciate what you're doing in every aspect, and definitely, like, this platform. Just keep on keeping on. If you learn nothing else from us,
thank you for believing in me and in us, and loving us and supporting us in all the ways you do. The words can't express how much it lifts us up.
It never gets tired hearing that, so keep on.
Lay it on me, baby.
Lay it on. All right.
This is the Living Indubiously podcast, and we thank you for tuning in.
Thanks. You've got to have an optimal theory for playing the game.
Whatever you focus upon becomes your truth.